Have you ever wondered why some athletes, despite their immense talent, seem to crumble under pressure? Today, we delve into the concept of the fear of failure in sports. Imagine standing on the precipice of your dreams, the roar of the crowd echoing in your ears, the weight of expectation heavy on your shoulders. This is where the fear of failure creeps in, casting a long, daunting shadow over an athlete's performance. It is a psychological hurdle, often more challenging to leap over than any physical barrier. It whispers doubts, sows seeds of uncertainty, and can turn the most formidable competitor into a hesitant participant. The fear of failure can be a significant obstacle, gripping the heart of an athlete, turning their strength into weakness, their confidence into self-doubt. It's an invisible enemy, a silent saboteur that can rob an athlete of their victory, even before the game begins. A true champion, however, is not defined by the absence of fear, but by their ability to face it head-on. Consider the case of tennis legend Andre Agassi. From an outside perspective, it's tempting to see a successful athlete like Agassi as someone who was always destined for greatness. But the truth is far more complex. Agassi's journey to tennis stardom was marred with struggle, doubt, and an intense fear of failure. In the early days of his career, Agassi was just a young talent with a powerful backhand and a dream. He was driven, ambitious, and skilled, but he also carried with him a paralyzing fear. The fear of letting himself down, the fear of letting others down, the fear of not living up to the expectations that had been placed upon him. This fear was so potent that it often overshadowed his talent on the court. There were instances, crucial matches, where this fear gripped him. One such match was the French Open in 1988. Despite being in prime form, Agassi was defeated in the semi-finals. The fear of failure had crept into his game, causing him to second-guess his every move. His performance was cautious, restrained. It was clear that the fear was holding him back. This fear of failure became a significant barrier to Agassi's progress. It impacted his self-confidence, it affected his game strategy, and it stole away the joy he once found in the sport. The fear was so consuming that Agassi found himself at a crossroads, questioning whether he was cut out for the world of professional tennis. The struggle with fear was real and intense. There were nights when he would lay awake wrestling with his thoughts, contemplating if he should hang up his racket for good. The pressure was immense, the fear overwhelming. The tennis court, once a place of passion and excitement, had become a battleground of self-doubt and apprehension. At one point, Agassi even considered quitting the sport he loved so much, but as we all know, that's not where his story ends. It's where his journey to overcoming fear really begins. But quitting was not in Agassi's nature. This became evident when he reached a crucial turning point in his career. A time came when he decided to face his fear head-on, to wrestle with the specter of failure that had been haunting him. He was determined to change his narrative, to rewrite the script that had been dictating his performance. Agassi started by reassessing his training routine. He knew he needed to push his boundaries, to break the barriers he had unconsciously set for himself. He began to train harder, pushing himself to the edge, testing his limits. He incorporated rigorous physical drills in his routine, not just to boost his stamina and strength, but also to build his resilience. He was preparing his body for the battles ahead, but more importantly, he was preparing his mind. He was teaching himself to endure, to withstand, to persist, but physical training alone was not enough. Agassi understood that overcoming fear was largely a mental game. He started practicing mental exercises. He would visualize his matches, picturing himself confronting his fears, making the right moves, winning. This mental rehearsal was not about building a castle in the air. It was about programming his mind to succeed, to win. Agassi also sought help from sports psychologists. He understood that fear of failure was a common issue among athletes, and there were professionals who could help him navigate through it. He learned techniques to manage stress, to stay focused during games, to shut out the noise of the crowd and the press. He learned to channel his fear into motivation, to use it as a driving force rather than a stumbling block. In confronting his fear, Agassi didn't just change his training routine, he changed his mindset. He started believing in himself again, started seeing possibilities where he had seen only roadblocks. He embraced the challenge, the risk, the possibility of failure. And he learned that it was okay to fail, that failure was not a dead end, but a stepping stone to success. Agassi's relentless pursuit of overcoming his fear eventually led him back to the top of the world rankings. He had turned his fear of failure into a catalyst for success. Agassi's journey was not easy, but it was worth every struggle. This man, this athlete, this legend, found himself at the precipice of a career-ending abyss, his confidence shaken, his fear of failure looming large. But what did he do? He didn't surrender. Instead, he faced his fear head-on and made a triumphant return to the sport he loved. He found himself back on the court, the familiar smell of the tennis balls, the echo of the crowd, the glare of the spotlight. It was all still there, but this time something was different. Agassi was different. He had faced his darkest fears and emerged stronger. He was no longer the same man who had once been paralyzed by the fear of failure. He was a phoenix, reborn from the ashes of his past defeats. His subsequent victories became a testament to his resilience. Each win was not just a notch on the scoreboard, but a defiant roar against the fear that had once held him captive. He wasn't just playing for the trophy anymore, he was playing for his redemption. He was playing to inspire, to show the world that fear of failure is not the end, but the beginning of a journey towards greatness. And inspire he did. Athletes from around the globe watched as Agassi, the man who had once teetered on the brink of despair, rose to the pinnacle of success. They saw his fear, his struggle, his triumph, and they learned. They learned that it's okay to be afraid. They learned that fear is not a sign of weakness, but a challenge to be conquered. They learned that the fear of failure can be the catalyst for success. Agassi's story is not just about a tennis player's triumphant return to the sport. It's a tale of courage, of resilience, of the indomitable human spirit that refuses to be defeated. It's a lesson for all of us, athletes and non-athletes alike, that fear is not an insurmountable obstacle, but an opportunity for growth. Agassi's story teaches us that fear is not a sign of weakness, but an opportunity for growth. So what can we learn from Andre Agassi's story? Well, the first lesson is clear. Fear is not the enemy, but rather a guide. It shows us where we need to focus, where we need to build strength. In Agassi's case, his fear of failure pushed him to practice more, to hone his skills, to strive for perfection. He didn't run away from his fear, he faced it, embraced it, and used it as a stepping stone towards his success. Another vital lesson we can take from Agassi's journey is the importance of resilience. Life will throw curveballs at you, whether you're an athlete or not. In such times, it's not about how hard you're hit, but how quickly you can bounce back. Agassi's career was a roller coaster ride, filled with highs and lows, but he never allowed his failures to define him. Instead, he learned from them and came back stronger. But how can we apply these lessons in our own lives? First, we need to acknowledge our fears, recognize them, understand them, but never let them control you. Instead, let them be your motivator, your driving force. Next, practice resilience. When you stumble, rise again. Each failure is a lesson, a stepping stone to your success. Embrace your failures, learn from them, and use them to fuel your journey. And finally, believe in yourself. You have the power to conquer your fears and overcome any obstacle that stands in your way. It won't be easy. It will require hard work, dedication, and relentless effort. But remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. In conclusion, Andre Agassi's story is not just about a legendary tennis player. It's a story about conquering fear, about resilience, about believing in oneself. It's a story that reminds us that we too can face our fears and overcome them. Remember, the only real failure is not trying. So face your fears, embrace them, and let them guide you to your own victory. In the end, overcoming the fear of failure is all about having the courage to fail. It's about understanding that failure in its most fundamental sense is not a dead end, but rather a detour on the road to success. See, every stumble, every fall, every mistake is a lesson waiting to be learned. It's an opportunity to grow, to evolve, to become stronger, wiser, and more resilient. And it's these very experiences that shape us, mold us, and ultimately propel us forward. So the next time you find yourself staring down the barrel of potential failure, don't shrink away in fear. Instead, stand tall, embrace the challenge, and remember that it's your courage to fail that truly defines you. After all, every champion was once a contender who refused to give up. So never fear failure. Instead, embrace it, learn from it, and let it propel you to greatness.